for me, reading Sebald is like a discovery, given there's been so much schlock written about post-Holocaust writing and so much terrible exploitation of the Holocaust and all that. Sebald seemed to have a way, actually, of thinking about these issues in a way that was neither sensationalist nor self-pitying, but that could be, on the one hand, sort of grimly humorous, but also very, very straightforward. It was like the best version of journalism one could imagine. Really straightforward documentary writing that was really artful at the same time. You wanted to listen to this voice. In this tradition of melancholy, it's as though these people, or people who feel this, are people who feel some inexplicable sense of loss. And they're people who try and locate this in history, as in, why am I feeling so fundamentally at a loss and so unattached? And it's as though the history gives you some sort of story about this, but the feeling is somehow that there's been some catastrophe that can't be located, and that one is living in the aftermath of that catastrophe. I mean, I assume that Sebald must have known the Freud essay on the uncanny, and Freud says something very simple in the essay, which is that when we have what we think of as an uncanny experience, it actually is a recovery of an experience that was once familiar and then had to be estranged in some way. So that if I go somewhere and have an experience of déjà vu, say, or I feel something uncanny is happening to me, it's because, unknown to myself, I'm having a memory of an earlier experience that was probably pleasurable, but I had to in some way disown. The most uncanny place is one's home. As in, it appears to be the most familiar place, but actually it's the most unfamiliar place. I think Sebald is, as well, wittier than he seems to be very often. I think Sebald knew that only children have homes, that adults don't have homes, and that there's something childish, in the best sense and the worst sense, about the idea of home. And I think that dinky little island, which is a bit like a sort of doll's house island, is a picture of all one's wishful fantasies about home, which are to do with safety, a controllable environment, a kind of security in terms of invasions. And it's a bit like, this is a toy that he's placed on the map of his books, as if to say, wouldn't it be nice if it could ever be like this? But actually, it's exactly the opposite. We're not on an island, we're all interconnected. And we're interconnected in ways that are horrifying to us very often. The Sebald narrator is kind of on the run, and what he's most fearful of is stopping. But he keeps having his attention arrested. And it's the moment at which he stops that something happens, that it's as though he begins to accumulate stuff that is eventually going to be incorporated in a narrative. So it's as though he begins by saying, I want to tell you a story about a walk, and by the end he's telling you, I've in fact told you a story about the catastrophes of Western culture since the Second World War and before. So that the fear is that if you allow yourself to become a writer, the catastrophe will be like an avalanche. Whereas if you keep walking, you might be okay.